Now on Denver 7 News at 5, making a bad situation even worse.
We are in a crisis. We are trying to stabilize our lives and come back. And these codes just make it more expensive.
Why Marshall Fire victims say red tape is making it harder to rebuild.
Okay, full collapse, first floor into the basement. Still confirming if everybody's out.
Plus, a massive house party with more than 100 teenagers goes wrong when the floor collapses beneath them.
And he's been called a hero for sticking with his country despite Russia's mission to take him down. We're taking an in-depth look at the Ukrainian president and how he went from comedian to military commander.
Good evening and welcome to Denver 7 News at 5. I'm Byron Wang.
And I'm JACLYN Allen. Thank you for joining us tonight. Louisville residents who lost their homes in the Marshall Fire want to rebuild, but they say new building codes the city council approved at the end of last year is going to make it harder and more expensive.
Denver 7's Patrick Perez was at the rally today where more than 100 people asked to have those codes suspended.
Outside Louisville City Hall Sunday, a call to action from a community desperate for someone to listen.
We are in a crisis. We are trying to stabilize our lives and come back. And these codes just make it more expensive.
Audrey DEBARRO lost her home on West Mulberry Street to the Marshall Fire. She wants to start over, but she says new building codes Louisville City Council approved last year are getting in the way.
To require citizens who have lost everything to be on the forefront of innovation when the private sector, doesn't really know how to build to that yet is really not fair.
There are estimates the zero energy requirements could cost homeowners anywhere between $20,000 to $100,000. It's even got former Louisville Mayor Chuck Sisk weighing in.
The point is, let's meet our residents and let's find ways to take some of the uncertainty out of their lives, like suspending the building code.
Louisville's current mayor, Ashley Stoltzman, was not in the audience, but two council members were.
The point of a rally, I think, is to be heard. And we are here and we are listening. And I appreciate you all for gathering.
The two were often drowned out by the crowd, but they seem to be in support of suspending these new building codes for Marshall Fire victims.
And we're going to make the best decision, or at least I'm going to cast the best vote that I can based on it.
Are you going to lobby?
For those lucky to have been spared by the fire,
we were within 3 houses of the total loss.
They're doing what they can to get their neighbors back without any additional cost.
I want them to be able to come back and make Louisville the strong town that we were before.
City Council is expected to take up this matter at its meeting on Tuesday. That begins at 6 o'clock, and we are expecting to hear from a lot of people. We're in Louisville. I'm Patrick Perez, Denver 7.
And we'll certainly be following this. Patrick, thank you. Several family members are coming forward identifying their loved ones as victims in a deadly crash that happened in Commerce City Friday night. Ashley Hoffman says her 16-year-old nephew, John Bledsoe, died in the crash. And her other nephew, 13-year-old Joe Bledsoe, is in the hospital with serious injuries. The loved ones of 15-year-old Michael Diaz also came forward identifying him as one of the other deaths in the crash. We have limited info on the other victims in the crash, but police have yet to reveal the identities of anyone else involved.
3 teens injured when a floor collapsed during a house party in Arapahoe County. Look at this. South Metro Fire Rescue says more than 100 people were inside this house last night when the first floor gave way into the basement. 1 teen had serious injuries, 2 others had minor injuries. The collapsed floor caused a gas leak. Crews were able to quickly shut off the line and everyone was able to get out safely.
All right, Coloradans are finally coming out of hibernation. Full transparency, me too. Many folks were enjoying the outdoors with the warmer weather today.
Look at this, short sleeves out there. Meteorologist Stacey Donaldson joins us now. Stacey, we might be seeing some t-shirt and shorts weather this week too.
It looks great going forward into our 7-day forecast. Today we were 23 degrees warmer than we were yesterday. Our highs were only in the 30s yesterday, in the upper 50s today. So a nice warm up all across the state. Currently we're at 55 degrees downtown, 49 in Greeley and in Sterling, and still 61 in Pueblo with mostly 20s and 30s for the high country. We have 55 degrees in Denver, 62 in Littleton, 61 in Highlands Ranch, and mostly 40s off to the north toward Erie and Firestone with 50 in Boulder. So we've come out of this nicely. That deep freeze last week. Today, our average afternoon high is 49 degrees, and we were well above that today. The record is 73. But as we go through the rest of tonight, our temperatures will drop into the 30s around 8 o'clock and pretty much stay there through about midnight. Our overnight low tonight expected to be in the 20s, which we haven't had for a while. These have mostly been our afternoon highs in the 20s for this last week. But it will be getting even warmer on the 7-day forecast. If you like 70s, you're in the right place. I'll show you when it gets warm coming up.
Now to a live look in Kyiv, where the local time is just after 1 in the morning. The capital is still under Ukrainian control after a series of small victories this weekend against Russian troops. And today, President Zelensky has agreed to send representatives to meet with Russia at the Belarus border.
And he says he does not believe Russia will negotiate in good faith and that there will be no major breakthroughs. Overnight, intense fighting taking place in Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv. Russian troops are targeting the country's infrastructure, hitting several large oil refineries. Putin is now ordering his country's strategic deterrence forces to get ready, which could include nuclear weapons. He says it's in response to what he calls aggressive statements from NATO countries.
This is really a pattern that we've seen from President Putin through the course of this conflict, which is manufacturing threats that don't exist in order to justify further aggression.
The U.S. and some European partners are moving to ban Russian banks from the SWIFT financial system that handles all foreign transactions. They're also targeting the Russian central bank in a move that could lock up more than $600 billion the Russian government has abroad.
People in Russia took to the streets today to protest the Ukrainian invasion. They marched in city centers from Moscow to Siberia, chanting "No to war." In St. Petersburg, riot police grabbed protesters and dragged them into police vans despite it being a peaceful demonstration. That's because in Russia it's illegal to protest unless you get a permit in advance, which is something that the government almost never approves.
We want to go in depth on what's happening in Ukraine, and to do that we are taking a closer look at the face of the Ukrainian people. Tonight we're going to tell you about President Volodymyr Zelensky and the unbelievable story of how he became president, and an unlikely hero to many.
Most of you have probably seen his near-daily videos posted to social media where he openly stands up to Russia, showing each day that he is alive and walking the streets of Ukraine.
We are not putting down arms. We will be defending our country because our weapon is truth. And our truth is that this is our land, our country, our children, and we will defend all of this.
He's also gone viral for his quotes that seem straight out of a movie. When the U.S. government offered to evacuate Zelensky last week, he responded by saying, "I need ammunition, not a ride."
I think there is something incredibly inspiring about having a leader who whose commitment to his nation has left him in this place where his death feels like a high probability event, and yet he's decided to stay in there with his people.
And it's not much of a stretch to think he has taken a little inspiration from the world of movies and TV. Before he was president, Zelensky was a famous actor and comedian.
He's best known for his leading role in the hit Ukrainian comedy show, Servant of the People. Zelensky plays a high school teacher who goes viral after a student films him ranting about government corruption. His character in the show is then elected president by complete surprise after Ukrainians pick him as a write-in candidate.
That show started back in 2015, right after the Ukrainian Revolution, when citizens overthrew the Kremlin-backed president for a democratically elected one. But that new government was notoriously corrupt. Servant of the People struck a chord with the Ukrainian population because of its anti-corruption message and because it mirrored what was happening in real life, something that would ultimately happen again.
Now, several years later, a political party based on the show, also called Servant of the People, was formed. It put up Zelensky as its candidate in the 2019 presidential election, since many Ukrainians already saw him as presidential. He beat all odds, winning with 73% of the vote, and just to prove truth is stranger than fiction, his character in the show did worse than real life, only winning with 60% of the vote.
And since his election, Ukrainians have responded positively to his time in office, with many considering him true to his character. He has made progress tackling corruption, firing dozens of top government officials and enacting reforms to take power away from oligarchs.
But Zelensky is not without his critics. Some say by weakening the oligarchs, he is looking to centralize authority and strengthen his position. He was also implicated in the 2021 Panama Papers leak, which showed he was connected to several offshore companies that owned London real estate.
So why are we talking about President Zelensky and his background? It's because many people believe Putin sees him as enemy number one, even the reason for the war. He's seen as someone who will bring Ukraine closer to the West and further from the Kremlin.
And recent reports suggest that Russia is actively looking to assassinate him and install a pro-Russia puppet government, something that would likely end the conflict or at least slow things down. But Zelensky remains defiant, refusing to abandon his country and vowing to fight until the very end.
I'm not sure people would have said that the world would have cared as much about Ukraine as it does now. And I think it's his speeches, it's his viral videos that have not just proven inspiring to his own people, but to people around the world.
We are all here defending our independence, our state, and it will remain so. Glory to our defenders. Glory to our women defenders. Glory to Ukraine.
Wow. All right, buying a house in this housing market's tough enough, but some buyers are facing a different set of challenges. How local groups are helping Black Coloradans put down their first down payment.
Plus, a cancer survivor is helping others going through the same situation, what she's doing to make sure that they feel and look like $1 million.